I'd like to start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Racha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is The Vineyard of the Lord and the Husbandman. Um, I'm just, got a few minutes to kill. Pretty much washing clothes right now, which I don't usually do on Saturdays. But, when you go through your sickness, you gotta wash them sheets and get some fresh sheets on your bed. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm doing right now. I want to say the water to the New York camp brothers, that have got us, different things, different herbs and all that, to take and all that, but it was overwhelming, so, and we just want to say this, I'm pretty sure the other apostles will agree, and the bishops, for you brothers and sisters out there, Babakusha, please don't send a whole bunch of herbs and all that, because it's overwhelming. It's more than likely it's going to end up going to waste because it's just too much. I got stuff that I haven't been able to take, that brothers sent, or actually that brothers gave to us, so it's just too much, so I just want to say that, to you brothers and sisters out there, when it comes to herbs and all that, Babakusha, please don't send, because it's gonna be overwhelming, but I want to say the water to the brothers in the New York camp, for their contribution and alms and all that. Now the name of the lesson is the vineyard of the Lord and the husbandman. The husbandman being the Most High, the vineyard being Israel. And this lesson is coming through the inspiration of a video I was just watching, which I watched about 8 minutes of it so far. The elder Karataza out of Vegas, going into pretty much, pretty much the marriage, vows or something along those lines with the Most High in Israel, which I've done lessons on that also in the past, dealing with how the covenant, was the vow, or the like I use the example of a ring, even though we know it's demonic in this world, but the ring is a symbol that man and woman belong to each other. They're married. So the law, statutes, and commandments with the covenant was a way for the Lord to signify to everybody that he was married to us. These people right here belong to me, so I don't want nobody messing with them. I don't want them messing with anybody else. No other lords over them, just me. So that was a sacred union, a sacred bond that wasn't supposed to be broken. But we understand what happened and why it went down the way it went down. So what I want to do is, while I got a few minutes, say a few words on this, see how far we can get before I have to go and throw the clothes in the dryer. And if the spirit is still on me, Lord's will, I'll continue on, with a part 2 to this, if the spirit allows. This is Isaiah chapter 5 verse 1. It says, "Now will I sing to my well-beloved a song of my beloved touching his vineyard." So this is the well-beloved is the Most High. All right. And then when you read on down, it tells you who that vineyard is. It says, "My well-beloved hath a vineyard in a very fruitful hill." This vineyard being the nation of Israel, excuse me, the fruitful hill being the land of Israel. All of that land from the Nile River in Egypt going towards the east, all the way up to the Euphrates River. What the so-called, or the scholars call the Fertile Crescent, so-called Fertile Crescent. And the reason why they call it the Fertile Crescent, the word fertile or fertile, means just that. It's very bountiful, very fruitful. So that land right there, from that point all the way up until the Euphrates River and even beyond, there are a lot of natural resources, minerals in the earth and all of that, case may be, spices, precious stones, precious metals, so on and so forth. And this is why you know, so-called Europe, as it's called today, is known as the bottomless pit in the scriptures, because the bottomless pit doesn't mean that there's no bottom to it, even though that's, that's what the term signifies. But the bottomless pit means that no matter how far you dig down into Europe, you're not going to find the mineral resources, and the fertility in the soil in the ground that you're going to find within these regions, going from, like you got in Egypt, so-called Africa, you got in the what they call the so-called Middle East, going into Iraq, Iran, Pakistan, India. All of these regions around there are very fertile. This is why there's a lot of imported spices from these places going to where? To Europe and other parts of the world, So that fruitful hill represents the land of Israel, all right, which was known as the land of Canaan at one time. All right, let me just get a time check. All right, it says, and he fenced it and gathered out the stones thereof. So in other words, when you fence something, is you go in, you have land, the land is got shrubs, it got, weeds, you got all kind of stuff. So you go there, you prune everything, not prune, you cut everything down, break up the ground, plant your seeds and all of that. This is what it means by fenced it. And what was the fence? The fence was pretty much a perimeter, right, around that land that would keep out, unwanted things. And what was that fence? That fence was the laws, statutes, the statutes, the commandments. All right, that was the standard, or the fence, because those were the guidelines on how to stay within that perimeter that the Lord set up. It says, and gathered the stones thereof and planted it with the choicest vine. Now, this is why, like, when you go to the store, to the liquor store, and you're buying whatever you're buying, whether you're buying wine or scotch or whiskey or whatever, normally what would happen is the lowest grade stuff would be on the bottom shelf. Medium grade stuff would be like in the middle shelf, and the higher grade stuff would usually be up higher. And sometimes, in some places, because people, they're related to Five Finger Louis, they keep it behind the counter. So the higher up the shelf you go, the more expensive the brandy or whatever it is that you drink. And the reason why is because there are certain ways that those things are maintained in order to give it that price. And that's why they have to sell it more expensive, because it takes a lot more care and a lot more money to cultivate that. So this is what the Lord did with us. He gave us the choicest vine. This is the best. This is the top of the top. This is the wine that Yahushua made at that feast. So you could understand, you understand, inside joke. And built a tower in the midst of it. So now what is the tower? Let's go real quick to Habakkuk chapter 2. Let's go to Habakkuk chapter 2. You brothers already know where we're going. Habakkuk chapter 2. Damn, part of me kind of wish I didn't throw them clothes in the wash, but I had to, I had to, man. Got to get them crusty shits off of the bed, man. Them sour sheets. Inside joke. You brothers that watch that video, you know what I'm talking about. Just bear with me when I get some refreshments. I'm a little parched. I made this coffee, and I added some lion's mane mushroom powder, some cinnamon, and some lion's mane mushroom powder, some cinnamon, and a little bit of honey. I've been I've been taking lion's mane. I've been taking reishi mushroom powder, and mainly the chaga mushroom powder. You know, and when you brothers and sisters out there, when you buy garlic, make sure you don't buy no goddamn garlic from China. They grow it horribly. In some cases, they grow it in sewer water. If you see any labels with China on it and garlic, do not touch that stuff. The way you know if it's Chinese garlic, when you go to the store and you pick up the actual bulb and you turn it upside down, if it doesn't, matter of fact, if it doesn't have these hairy things on the bottom, do not buy them, because in China they cut them off. So you don't have any of this furry stuff on the bottom. This happens to be from Argentina. So if you see something that's cut off at the bottom, that's a Chinese. And then they actually take the actual garlic and I believe they put it in chlorine or something, or bleach. No, they bleach it. All right, and that's why it's completely super white. And you can see here, this still got like purplish around it, and it has the hair from from where it was attached to. But in China they cut that off, and you just see like a smooth bottom. If you see that, run from that shit. But Habakkuk 2:1 Salakia got a little sidetracked. Time checker. Wow. All right. I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower. And the tower was set up for what? For watchmen to watch for when the enemy was coming in. And that watchtower is for the prophets. And will watch to see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. And this is what the prophets would do. So this is what that tower represents in this vineyard. So not only did the Lord put a fence around it, not only did the Lord cultivate it with the best, with the best seeds, the top of the seeds, he also put or set up watchmen over it to keep a watchful eye on it, to tell it, when it was going off, or to pretty much keep an eye on it. If something needed to be watered, add water to it. If something needed to be, if you see a weed growing over here, you pull it out, throw it out, so on and so forth. They keep a watchful eye on it, right? So going back, it says, and built a tower in the midst of it, and also made a wine press therein, right, to keep in the wine, right? It says, and he looked that it should bring forth grapes, right? So he looked at it, when the time came for the fruit to come out, grapes should come out. The top choicest grapes, the most coveted grapes, the ones that taste the best, the sweetest, most nutritious, with the seeds in it, not GMO, not sprayed with death pesticides, so on and so forth. I don't want to say the name of it because I don't know if that's in the algae. It says, and it brought forth wild grapes. And this right here is a very good precept to Romans the 11th chapter. In Romans the 11th chapter, it speaks about the unnatural grapes or something like that, contrary to nature. So that's what happened. The Lord did everything perfect, but what happened? The product that came out afterwards was still wild grapes, sour grapes, and this is what happened to our nation. The Lord gave us everything we needed, and what it said, and Jeshurun waxed fat and kicked. It says, and now, O inhabitants of Jerusalem and men of Judah, because this is who the Lord is dealing with. He ain't dealing with the other nations. That's why it says that he never gave them the law, statutes, and commandments. It says, and now, O inhabitants of Jerusalem and men of Judah, judge, I pray you, betwixt me and my vineyard. Right. So if you have a complaint against me, judge between me, myself, and my vineyard. Right. It says, what could have been done more to my vineyard? What did I forget to do? Did I forget to do anything? Do you have any complaints? Do you have anything, that that you could bring charges against me of something that I forgot to do, a step that I forgot or something that I didn't do to make sure that this field would bring forth these good grapes, the top choicest grapes that I actually planted. Will judge between you and me. Tell me. It says, wherefore, when I looked, because we can't bring any charges against the Lord, right? So it says, wherefore, when I looked that it should bring forth grapes, brought it forth wild grapes, right? Because if you can't bring a charge against me for something that I did wrong, then why, if I did everything right, which the most I did, why did this field still yield sour grapes, these wild grapes? It says, and now go to, I will tell you what I will do to my vineyard. I will take away the hedge thereof, and it shall be eaten up. And that's why we fell to these other nations, because a part of the curse was what? That we would be led into captivity among all these nations and scattered among these nations, which these rats are trying to use that now to say that is fulfilled in them. How the fuck that is, I don't know. But this is what the devil does. They'll tell you truth, but then they'll glaze it over with bullshit. It says, and break down the wall thereof, and it shall be trodden down. And that's what happened. And eventually, from one empire to another, from one captivity to the next, we continued on until, during the Assyrian Empire, the northern kingdom was completely taken down, and then the majority of them came over here to this side of the world, and then eventually, by the time the Roman Empire ruled, goddamn weirdo. By the time the Roman Empire ruled, right, the complete annihilation and destruction, fuck out of here, man. The complete annihilation and destruction of Jerusalem happened during 70 AD. And after that, there was nothing left, and eventually our people, we lost everything. And this is why I said that we could not make mention of the Lord's name. Not that we couldn't call on the name. That's why these, small hats say Hashem or the name. No, it's not that we can't call on the Lord's name. When you go back to the word mention in Amos 6:10, the word mention there is from the Hebrew zakar, which means remember. So we would not remember because it would be stripped from our memory. That's why we have to be stirred up by way of remembrance. This is why the Lord said in the land of our captivity, we will remember the Lord's name. Why? Because the Lord would bring it back into our memory by that same tower that he took away at one time, which are the prophets. It says, and I will lay it waste, it shall not be pruned nor digged, right? Because in order for you to have good crops, there has to be a careful eye that has to be kept, on that flock. All right. And this is the problem, that it was not pruned. It was not, the weeds that came around it that weren't taken away, and what happened was the hedges were taken off. There was no one watching over it, and like when you have a field, if you're not constantly taking care of it and grooming it, it's gonna grow wild. It's gonna grow tall, wild weeds, all kind of stuff in it, to where it's gonna be impassable. And that's what happened to our nation. That's why you got these goons, these beyond ninjas, as the elder Apostle Tahar, coined them, beyond ninjas, and impossible ninjas. And that's how Jacob's become, and this is the direction where entertainment, music, and all that led these people. What used to be known as Israelites, now you can't even call them that. You got to use Apostle Tahar's term, beyond ninjas, impossible, because it's an impossibility, though. That's beyond wild bulls in the net, man. And this is exactly what the direction that these people, that owned the music industry, especially dealing with rap, wanted the direction for everything to go. So their plans worked out perfectly the way they wanted it. Why? Because they were funding it. And this is why the artists do not have, creative license, because there is an agenda, and the people that hold the biggest stock in those industries, pretty much have a big shareholding in these prisons, and prisons equal money, because prisons can make money off of inmates and use slave labor on them pursuant to the 13th Amendment. See? And that's how it goes down. So it says, and I will lay it waste, it shall not be pruned nor digged, but there shall come up briars and thorns. I will also command the clouds that they rain no rain upon it, right? Because when no rain comes down, what happens is it causes it not to grow. It stunts the growth. And that's what happened to our nation. Our people were stunted from growing. And I'm not talking about stunting like, showing off, and I'm talking about like stunting like stopping, putting a cap on it where you can't grow anymore. And that's why we fell and became as degenerate as we became. And the Lord did everything perfect. But there's a purpose and a reason for everything. It says, for the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the men of Judah his pleasant plant. Right. Because Judah is the head tribe. You have a garden, right, with all different types of variety, but there's always, for every farmer, there's always a part of his garden that has something special in it that they particularly love, something that they're very proud of, whether it's a vineyard, whether it's tomatoes, whether it's cucumbers or leeks or whatever the case may be. There's always a part of their garden that's very special and dear to them. And that's how the tribe of Judah is to the Most High. All right. So we happen to be the vineyard, but the men of Judah are that pleasant, special, plant. All right. It says, and he looked for judgment, but behold, oppression, for righteousness, but behold, a cry. Right. Why? Because our people became degenerate. That's why. Let me read this one last one, and I got to go throw my clothes. Yeah, because it's about that time. Let me read this one last shot, cause I love you. Inside joke, don't mind me. This is Jeremiah 2:20. For of old time I have broken thy yoke. Right. Meaning from what? From these nations, the bond that these nations had over us, and burst thy bonds, or bands, Salakia. And thou saidest, I will not transgress. When upon every high hill and under every green tree thou wanderest playing the harlot. And what does that mean? That means that the Lord is married to us, or we're married to the Lord. And when a woman is married to a man, she is not supposed to be dealing with no other man. She's not supposed to be looking at no other man. She's not supposed to be desiring any other man but her husband. So what we did as a nation was because the main thing that the Lord didn't want us to do was to bow down to any other idol. Because those other idols, once you bow down to them, you become subservient to them, which means they become your husband. And that's what happened. That's what the Lord speaks about, the image of jealousy. And we when we did that, that is what severed, the agreement, of the covenant, between the Heavenly Father and us. And that's why eventually we became strangers from the Commonwealth of Israel, because it belonged to us, but the Lord stripped it from us and alienated us from it, especially when he kicked us out of the land. That's how we became aliens. When you go to the book of Obadiah, it says that when the Lord was cursing Esau out, it says you shouldn't have came against your brother in the day when your brother became a stranger. You see? And when you go to First Ezra, it speaks about, that we were strangers, in jewelry or something like that. Jewelry stranger, something like that, So that's what happened. It says, yet I had planted thee a noble vine, which we just read that. Holy, a right seed. Holy, not holy like as Holy, like in, saintly, but holy, Wholly, which is whole. So the whole nation was planted a noble vine, a right seed, meaning what? The proper seed, not a GMO seed, nothing else. It's the right seed. Why is that shit still on? All right, it says, how then art thou turned into the degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me? So we degenerated from that status that we had. Because when you look up those two words, and after that I gotta go Salakia, I gotta put this let me see, I got a study Bible here with the Hebrew. It's not as good as the other one that I have, but I didn't fire that one up, so it's gonna take a while to do that. So let's go to Jeremiah 2, excuse me, and 21. I want to show you two words there, then I gotta close it out, and Lord's will, I come back with a part 2 if the Spirit hits me with more info. All right, degenerate plant. The word there is sawar. It just says degenerate. It doesn't really go too much into it. Let's look up the word degenerate in the Common Dictionary. Degenerate. A person whose behavior deviates from what is acceptable, especially in sexual behavior. It doesn't always have to be that way, but you could use that as a degenerate or sexual deviant or pervert. Yep. Grow worse, unrestrained by convention or morality. That's going into the sexual thing, which you could also apply that, but grow worse, right? Because you degenerate when people get older. There's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Because the foods are not nutrient rich, there are a lot of deficiencies in the body. Vitamin deficiency, mineral deficiencies, amino acid deficiencies, and many other deficiencies. And that's why the body starts to degenerate or get worse, and this is just the course of life in this world, and that's why people start to have cognitive dysfunctions and joint aches, and just their body shuts down on them because of these deficiencies. So we turned from a glorious plant into a degenerate plant. Now when we look up the word strange vine unto me, the word strange is nakarya, which is the actual Salakia for that. Well, which the word nakarya is the actual way of saying an actual stranger. Sometimes it's ban nakar or nakarya or ban nakarya, which is the word used for an actual stranger. So that's why sometimes when you see that word nakarya, it's talking about an Israelite that's in a strange or foreign state of mind. That's hence why we call Israelite foreigners, or Israelites in a Gentile state of mind, because they became foreign to what they were accustomed to, or what they were set up to do. See, and that's what happened. We became like a strange, so this is why you have to know when to discern when the stranger is talking about an Israelite or when it's talking about the actual nations. All right, such as in the book of 1 Kings 8, and I believe that 2 Chronicles 6, which says the same thing, when it speaks about the stranger, that's talking about Israelites that will become like the strangers pretty much. And Isaiah 56 is another one that these devils try to use to say that that's talking about the other nations. It's not talking about the other nations. It's talking about our people that have gone, in a way that is not good. All right, which became strange to the ways that we were given. All right. So, like I said, Salakia, with that, I'm gonna have to roll out so I can throw these clothes in the dryer. Hopefully, the spirit hits me. I had another scripture that had came to mind to go with this lesson. I can't really think of it right now, but a parable did come to mind. So if I can't think of the other scripture, Lord's will, I'll just, if the spirit allows, I'll do maybe I'll go into the parable, and see what happens. All right. So with that, I pray that you brothers and sisters have been edified. To the next time I say shalom.